In the heart of Oklahoma on April 14, 1935, an unprecedented event unfolded that would come to be known as Black Sunday. The day turned into night, not gradually but suddenly and completely. How could this happen? What triggered such a dramatic shift in weather? Before we begin, a small request. Most of the people listening tonight aren't subscribed. If this channel has ever helped you drift off, take a moment to subscribe. It's free, it helps this channel more than you'd think, and you can always change your mind later. And if you feel like it, leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love reading them. One more thing before we begin. I'm also a co-founder of a sleep app, built to be the most affordable one out there. No ads, ever. Just sounds and stories made to help you sleep. It may not be released yet as this video goes up, but if you're watching a little later, it might be out by now. Just search for it. It should be easy to find. It works on iPhone, Android, and everything in between. Downloading it is the best way to support this channel. In the early 1930s, a severe drought began to grip the Great Plains of America. This wasn't just any ordinary dry spell, it was one of the worst in history. The rains that should have nourished the vast farmlands simply didn't come. Farmers watched as their crops withered and died. Millions of acres of farmland were devastated by this drought, a drought that would come to be known as the Dust Bowl. The term Dust Bowl originated from the dust that blew during this drought, covering the Great Plains in a thick layer of dirt. This period lasted from around 1934 to about 1940, making it one of the most enduring environmental disasters of the 20th century. The Dust Bowl was a direct result of severe drought and poor agricultural practices that were already putting a strain on the land. Overgrazing of cattle and sheep also damaged the topsoil before the Dust Bowl hit, making it even more vulnerable to erosion. This perfect storm of factors turned the Great Plains into a desert, a place known as the Dust Bowl. By 1934, drought had transformed this once fertile region into a barren wasteland where dust storms became a regular occurrence. The Dust Bowl had a profound impact on the Great Plains region of the United States, an impact that would shape modern conservation efforts. We're talking about the culmination of years of devastating drought and agricultural practices that left the land barren and vulnerable. This prolonged period of dry weather left the land parched and vulnerable. As if the drought wasn't enough, high winds began to sweep across the region with increasing frequency and intensity. These winds, gusting at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour or more, whipped the loose topsoil into massive dust clouds. The combination of severe drought and high winds was a recipe for disaster, creating conditions ripe for catastrophic storms like the one that would strike on April 14, 1935. The dryness of the land and the powerful gusts amplified each other's effects, turning what would have been a minor dust event into a cataclysmic storm. Imagine the topsoil as dry kindling ready to ignite at the slightest spark of wind. The high winds acted like a powerful gust of air fanning that spark, turning a small localized dust storm into an immense region-wide catastrophe. It's 4 p.m. on April 14, 1935. In the eastern Oklahoma Panhandle and far northwestern Oklahoma, a wall of blowing sand and dust begins to take shape. By the early 1930s, farmers' land mismanagement had laid bare millions of acres of Great Plains farmland. The wall intensifies, growing larger and more menacing. As the storm rolls in, residents start taking shelter. In the aftermath, communities are left reeling from the storm's rapid intensification and the devastation it left in its wake. As the storm intensifies, residents begin to frantically seal their homes with wet towels and blankets, attempting to keep out the choking dust. The once tranquil communities are now filled with a palpable sense of urgency as people rush to protect themselves and their families from the encroaching darkness. Ben Pollard, OCHS board president, also welcomes attendees to the event. He emphasizes the need for immediate action and offers guidance on how to best protect themselves from the storm. The storm causes widespread panic among residents, many of whom have never experienced such a severe weather event. Homes are sealed as tightly as possible, but the dirt still finds its way inside. Emergency services are overwhelmed with calls for help as people desperately seek refuge from the storm. Medical personnel are dispatched to attend to those suffering from respiratory issues caused by the thick dust. Schools and public buildings are quickly transformed into temporary shelters, providing a safe haven for those caught off guard by the storm's sudden onset. Residents huddle together in makeshift shelters, listening to the howling winds and praying for the storm to pass quickly. The situation is grim, but there's a sense of resilience that permeates the community. As the storm subsides and visibility begins to improve, people cautiously emerge from their shelters, assessing the damage done by the fierce winds and choking dust. The dust storm is not just an isolated event, it symbolizes nearly a decade of environmental disaster. As the storm clears and residents begin to assess the damage, they find their homes blanketed in dust. The choking dust forces many to take shelter, while others must navigate through the haze, their visibility reduced to near zero. Families are left without a source of income, their livelihoods destroyed by the storm's fury. The storm's aftermath is profound and far-reaching. It prompts a re-evaluation of farming practices and leads to the creation of modern soil and water conservation systems. As the dust settles, farmers begin to implement new techniques that prioritize sustainability over short-term gain. The landscape slowly begins to heal as these conservation efforts take root and stabilize the soil. To tackle this crisis, the government established the Soil Conservation Service in 1935. This new agency was tasked with promoting and implementing conservation practices across the affected regions. The SCS introduced innovative techniques like crop rotation, contour ploughing, and windbreaks to help stabilize the soil and prevent further erosion. These practices were a significant departure from traditional farming methods that had laid the land bare. Employees of the SCS often wore gas masks during their work, highlighting the severity of the dust conditions. Their efforts to restore the landscape were vital and urgent. Through these conservation programs, farmers began to see tangible results. The once barren lands slowly started to heal as the new practices took root and stabilized the soil. These conservation lessons learned during the Dust Bowl continue to influence our approach to land management today, ensuring that future generations can protect and nurture the Earth's resources. The event highlighted the importance of proper land management techniques, showcasing how human activities can exacerbate natural disasters. Wind erosion was a major effect seen in the Dust Bowl region, as shown by abandoned farmsteads in Oklahoma, 1937. Today, communities across the country are implementing stricter soil and water conservation measures, directly informed by the lessons learned during the Dust Bowl era. These modern practices aim to maintain the delicate balance between human activity and natural resources, ensuring that future generations can thrive without repeating the mistakes of the past. Satellites, advanced weather modeling, and early warning systems have significantly improved our ability to track and forecast dust storms. Climate models predict an increase in both the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events due to rising temperatures. Despite modern technology, the risk persists, highlighting the need for ongoing vigilance and adaptation in our conservation practices. This delicate balance can be disrupted by changing climate patterns, making it all the more important to implement sustainable practices. By adopting modern conservation techniques and staying informed about climate changes, we can minimize the impact of future dust storms. The gathering was a poignant reminder of how quickly environmental conditions can change and the importance of conservation in preventing such catastrophes. The commemorations serve as a powerful tribute to those who endured the hardships and a testament to the resilience of communities affected by these disasters. They also highlight how far we have come in understanding and managing drought conditions, thanks to modern conservation techniques and climate awareness. By honoring these memories and learning from the past, we can work towards a future where such devastating events become less frequent. In the future of conservation, scientists and environmentalists will look back on the Dust Bowl as a stark reminder of what can happen when land is mismanaged. It underscored the importance of sustainable farming practices to prevent soil erosion and other environmental issues. The Dust Bowl was characterized by a series of severe dust storms that devastated agricultural lands across the Great Plains, including Oklahoma and Kansas. These storms highlighted the urgent need for better land management practices. Innovations in farming technology and policy will be crucial in adapting to future challenges. As climate change continues to alter weather patterns, resilient farming practices will be essential to mitigate environmental risks. Modern conservation efforts emphasize the use of cover crops and reduced tillage, methods that help retain soil moisture and prevent erosion. These practices are vital in protecting agricultural lands from droughts and severe weather events. The future will also see greater integration of technology, such as satellite imagery and climate modeling, to monitor environmental conditions and predict potential disasters. This proactive approach can help farmers and policymakers stay ahead of impending crises. By embracing sustainable farming and leveraging advanced technologies, future generations can minimize the risk of another Dust Bowl scenario. The lessons from Oklahoma and Kansas serve as a guiding light for future conservation efforts. In conclusion, the future of conservation holds great promise if we learn from the past and adapt to modern challenges. By implementing innovative practices and technologies, we can protect our environment and ensure a sustainable future for all. This transformation was not just a natural disaster, but a man-made catastrophe triggered by unsustainable agricultural practices. The Great Plow-Up began when settlers arrived and saw the vast expanse of grasslands as an opportunity to turn the prairie into farms. But these methods were ill-suited for the Great Plains, where deep-rooted native grasses held the soil in place. The settlers' plows exposed millions of acres of land to the harsh winds and sun, leading to severe erosion over time. Further exacerbating the problem was the lack of crop rotation and cover cropping techniques that helped maintain soil health. These practices would have enriched the soil with nutrients and prevented it from being blown away. Instead, farmers planted monocultures of drought-resistant crops like wheat, which required even more tilling and ploughing. Additionally, livestock overgrazing further damaged the topsoil, leaving it vulnerable to winds. The Homestead Acts, which encouraged settlers to claim land and farm it, contributed to this rapid expansion of agriculture. But the promises of prosperity from these lands were short-lived. The combination of drought and high winds turned the once fertile soil into dust that blew across the Great Plains in massive storms. This was the Great Plow-Up, a calamitous series of events that transformed the prairie into a dusty wasteland. And it would take modern conservation efforts and innovative farming techniques to restore the land to its former glory. The storm wasn't just a terrifying sight, it was a dire threat to human health and safety. As the dense cloud of dust rolled in, people began to experience respiratory issues. Those with pre-existing lung conditions were at particular risk. The fine particles in the dust could penetrate deep into the respiratory system, exacerbating allergies and asthma. But it wasn't just lungs that were affected. Eyes became irritated and stung from the abrasive dust. Vision was severely impaired, making even simple tasks dangerous. The psychological trauma was palpable. The sight of the approaching black wall of dust instilled fear and panic. People huddled in their homes, wearing damp cloths over their faces for protection. As the storm subsided, so did any sense of security. The aftermath brought economic hardship and the breakdown of communities. Mass migration followed as people fled their devastated farms, seeking better opportunities elsewhere. Communities that once thrived were left barren and desolate. The storm's impact was profound and lasting. It left a mark not only on the land, but also on the people who suffered through it. And as the storm faded into memory, a new chapter of resilience and adaptation began. In the heart of Oklahoma and Kansas, the dust storms had taken a heavy toll. Croplands were devastated, and farmers faced an uncertain future. In 1935, the Emergency Conservation Work Act was passed. The Act established a Soil Conservation Service, aimed at improving farming practices across the country. One key initiative was the planting of shelter belts, rows of trees and shrubs designed to protect soil from wind erosion. Contour ploughing, a technique that follows the natural curves of the land, was also heavily promoted. These practices were not just recommendations, they became standard procedures for farmers looking to protect their land. The government also encouraged crop rotation, alternating different crops each year to maintain soil health. These measures required not only effort, but also a significant change in mindset. These practices laid the foundation for modern conservation efforts, protecting the land and ensuring that such devastating storms would never return. And as these measures took root across the plains, a new era of resilience and sustainable farming began. The lessons learned from the Dust Bowl shaped not just agricultural practices, but also the spirit of resilience in those who faced the storm. As early as 1901, the US Department of Agriculture established a soil erosion service to address concerns about wind erosion and soil moisture retention. This agency would later become the Soil Conservation Service under the leadership of Hugh Hammond Bennett. Bennett, often referred to as the father of soil conservation, conducted extensive research on wind erosion and its effects on agricultural lands. His studies revealed that traditional farming techniques, such as deep ploughing, were contributing to the degradation of topsoil. This realization was a crucial step towards developing new, more sustainable practices. Bennett's work laid the foundation for modern agricultural practices that focus on soil health and conservation. Techniques like crop rotation, contour farming, and the use of cover crops are now commonplace thanks to his pioneering research. Today, we recognize the importance of preserving our soil through sustainable practices. The lessons from the Dust Bowl remind us that science and conservation efforts play a vital role in maintaining the health of our environment. The impact of the Dust Bowl was not just a story of weather gone awry, but also a tale of human migration and misguided agricultural practices. During the early decades of the 20th century, African Americans were fleeing the Jim Crow laws and racial oppression of the southern states in what became known as the Great Migration. This significant population shift saw millions of people relocating northward, but also westward to the seemingly fertile lands of the southern plains, including Oklahoma and Kansas. The Great Plains, once a vast sea of grassland stretching from Texas to Canada, had long been considered ideal for agriculture. But in the early 20th century, settlers lured by promises of rich, fertile soil began to clear the land for farming. With the introduction of tractors and other mechanized equipment, farmers could now plow more land faster than ever before. This technological revolution, however, came with unforeseen consequences. The deep ploughing disturbed the delicate balance of the soil, leaving it exposed to the harsh winds and drought that plagued the region. Tons of topsoil were swept away by the dust storms, creating a cascade of environmental problems. Modern conservation efforts strive to protect the land from such devastating effects, ensuring a future where agriculture thrives in harmony with nature. As the dust settled and farmers surveyed their devastated lands, they realized that traditional practices alone could no longer save their farms. One of their key initiatives was the formation of the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC. The CCC was designed to address soil erosion and other environmental challenges. By 1935, the CCC had mobilized thousands of young men across the country to plant trees and build shelters. These efforts were crucial in mitigating the effects of soil erosion caused by drought and poor farming practices. The CCC also implemented advanced soil conservation techniques that were far more effective than previous methods. These techniques included terracing and contour ploughing, which helped to control water runoff and retain topsoil. The government's proactive approach demonstrated a new level of commitment to protecting the land from further devastation. Through these practical steps, the foundations were laid for modern conservation efforts that continue to this day. As the winds calmed and the dust settled, farmers could take heart knowing that their land was now safeguarded against future storms. While the immediate effects of the storm were devastating, its long-term influence would reverberate across American culture, shaping literature, music, and film for generations to come. John Steinbeck's seminal work, The Grapes of Wrath, vividly captured the plight of Dust Bowl migrants, offering a first-hand account of the hardships endured during this trying time. Woody Guthrie, known as the Dust Bowl troubadour, immortalized the experiences of these migrants in his folk songs, providing a musical narrative to the stories told by Steinbeck. His haunting lyrics, such as those from Dust Bowl Blues, echoed the struggles and hopes of those who faced the wrath of nature during these dark times. The film, The Plow That Broke the Plains, directed by Per Lorentz, offered a poignant visual account of the Dust Bowl era, showcasing the devastating consequences of poor agricultural practices. Released in 1936, the documentary served as a wake-up call to the nation, illustrating the urgent need for better land management practices. Farmers in the Great Plains were among the hardest hit. With prices for crops plummeting and loans harder to come by, many found themselves struggling just to stay afloat. Desperate to maintain their livelihoods, farmers resorted to overplanting and overgrazing in an attempt to increase yields and income. This practice, however, only served to exacerbate the already fragile condition of the soil. With no natural vegetation to anchor it, the topsoil was left vulnerable to the strong winds that swept across the region. In 1934, as the Dust Bowl reached its peak intensity, farmers were forced to watch helplessly as their crops withered and their livestock succumbed to the relentless dust storms. The economic downturn had set in motion a vicious cycle. Farmers' desperation led to unsustainable practices, which in turn worsened soil erosion and made the land even less productive. The event highlighted the devastating interplay between economic hardship and environmental degradation that had been unfolding for years. The advent of tractors accelerated this process. Farmers could now cultivate larger areas faster and more efficiently. But the soil of the southern plains was not like that of their eastern homelands. Here, the grasses held the fine topsoil in place. With deep ploughing and faster cultivation, the land was laid bare, exposing millions of acres to the relentless winds. It was a stark reminder that what seems like an advancement can sometimes exacerbate underlying issues. And so, the story of the Dust Bowl serves as a sobering lesson on the unintended consequences of technological change. Consider the stark contrast between the traditional land use practices of Native Americans and those of the settlers who followed them. For thousands of years, indigenous tribes like the Osage, Pawnee, and Comanche roamed the Great Plains, their connection to the land deep and profound. They understood that the fertility of this vast ecosystem depended on careful stewardship. They practiced controlled burns, setting small fires at regular intervals to clear out dead vegetation and stimulate new growth. These managed fires not only maintained the health of the grasslands, but also created diverse habitats that supported a rich variety of wildlife. The settlers who arrived later introduced farming methods alien to this environment. Deep ploughing, common in the humid eastern states, was particularly disastrous in the arid Great Plains. In stark contrast, indigenous tribes practiced sustainable grazing, moving their herds across the landscape to allow forage to regenerate naturally. This method preserved the balance between the grasslands and the animals that depended on them. However, the settlers' approach of overgrazing their cattle decimated the landscape. The tragic irony is that the very practices meant to cultivate the land ended up destroying it. Understanding the wisdom of indigenous stewardship could have mitigated the devastating impact of the Dust Bowl. Their practices offer valuable lessons for modern conservation efforts, highlighting alternative land management strategies that respect and nurture the natural environment. By embracing a more harmonious approach to our surroundings, we can work with nature rather than against it, ensuring the health and sustainability of our lands for future generations. The legacy of the Dust Bowl serves as a stark reminder of the need for responsible land use practices that honor the delicate balance of our ecosystems. With soil blowing across the Great Plains, the federal government saw an urgent need for action. It provided funding for landowners to plant trees and other windbreaks, which could help prevent soil from blowing away. The Act also supported efforts to introduce crop rotation and other conservation techniques that protected the soil from overuse. Farmers were encouraged to plant cover crops like clover or winter wheat, which could keep the soil in place during fallow periods. These new practices marked a significant shift in agricultural policy, moving away from the plough-based methods that had contributed to the Dust Bowl. Its legacy can still be seen today in the agricultural practices that protect our soil from erosion. Birds, especially those migrating through the area, were disoriented by the sudden darkness and heavy dust clouds. Many species altered their migration patterns to avoid the affected regions, leading to significant shifts in bird populations across the Great Plains. Animals that depended on vision for navigation and feeding were particularly vulnerable during these dust storms. The fine dust particles also had a harmful impact on animal respiratory systems, leading to increased illness and mortality rates among various species. The ecological consequences were far-reaching, with some species unable to adapt quickly enough to the sudden changes in their environment. The dust storms of the Dust Bowl era not only changed the course of history for human communities, but also altered the very fabric of life in these once thriving ecosystems. These programs addressed issues such as overgrazing, deep ploughing techniques, and the lack of grass cover that had laid bare millions of acres of Great Plains farmland. The implementation of these policies marked a significant change in agricultural regulations and subsidies, aimed at promoting sustainable farming methods. These changes included the introduction of crop rotation practices, soil preservation techniques, and incentives for farmers to adopt more environmentally friendly approaches. The dust storm on April 14th was particularly severe, reducing visibility to near zero and covering everything in a thick layer of dirt. For the residents of these rural communities, the impact was immediate and profound. Community structures, which were the lifeblood of these towns, began to crumble under the weight of this natural disaster. Schools, churches, and local businesses struggled as families fled the region in search of better conditions elsewhere. The displacement of residents was one of the most heartbreaking consequences of the dust storm. With no jobs or homes left to return to, many people were forced to leave behind their beloved communities and start anew elsewhere. The long-term economic repercussions were equally devastating. Farmers, who had once been the backbone of these rural economies, found themselves unable to cultivate their lands due to the loss of topsoil and the persistent drought. Businesses that depended on agriculture, such as local stores and suppliers, saw their customer base dwindle and ultimately close their doors. The financial strain also led to the breakdown of social support systems within these communities. Families that had once relied on each other for support were now scattered across different states, leaving many to face hardship alone. Yet, amidst this adversity, there were stories of resilience and hope that emerged from these hard-hit communities. Community members banded together to support one another, sharing resources and offering comfort in the face of such dire circumstances. In the end, it was this spirit of unity that helped many rural communities in Oklahoma and Kansas survive the storm and rebuild their lives. Advances in weather prediction systems have been crucial. Satellites and sophisticated algorithms now track changing weather patterns with remarkable accuracy. These tools allow farmers to make informed decisions about planting and harvesting, minimizing the risk of losing crops to sudden storms. Innovations in soil management have also played a significant role. Modern techniques like no-till farming and cover cropping help maintain soil health. By leaving the ground undisturbed and using plants to cover the soil, farmers can prevent erosion and keep topsoil in place. Precision farming, which uses GPS technology to apply fertilizers and pesticides with precise control, reduces waste and further protects the soil. Beyond these agricultural techniques, advanced irrigation systems ensure that fields remain sufficiently moist during dry periods. Drip irrigation, for example, delivers water directly to plant roots, using it more efficiently than traditional methods. All these technological advancements work together to create a sustainable farming ecosystem that can withstand harsh conditions. The practical applications of these modern technologies are evident in today's farmlands across Oklahoma and Kansas. Kansas farmers faced devastating losses as crops were decimated by the intense dust storms. The fine particles of topsoil carried by the winds clogged the air, blocking sunlight and preventing plants from photosynthesizing. Livestock were also severely affected. The low visibility and the irritating particles forced many animals to stray off their pastures. Farmers had no choice but to adapt. They began to implement new techniques such as crop rotation and cover cropping to protect their soil from erosion. These practices helped to stabilize the soil and reduce the impact of future dust storms. The resilience of these farmers is a testament to their ability to adapt and overcome even the most challenging conditions. The once fertile farms of Oklahoma and Kansas were now unrecognizable, blanketed under layers of dust. The economic fallout was swift and severe. Bankruptcies became commonplace as farmers struggled to keep their heads above water. Overnight, the region's agricultural backbone crumbled under the weight of this environmental catastrophe. Job losses were profound and far-reaching. Ranch hands, farm hands, and other laborers found themselves unemployed, their livelihoods swept away by the storm. The economic ripple effects were felt far beyond individual farms. Small towns across Oklahoma and Kansas lost crucial revenue streams as businesses shuttered their doors. Farm equipment dealerships, seed companies, and other agricultural support services all took a hit, adding to the financial woes of an already devastated region. The federal government stepped in with aid programs designed to mitigate some of the economic damage. The Resettlement Administration, for instance, provided financial assistance and loans to displaced farmers. The lessons learned from this catastrophe led to the implementation of soil conservation programs that continue to protect agricultural lands today, ensuring that such devastating economic losses are not repeated. And as we continue to face new environmental challenges today, it's crucial to remember that economic stability is inextricably tied to the health of our planet. The lungs, designed to filter out larger particles, were overwhelmed by the sheer volume of dust. Doctors struggled to keep up with the influx of patients suffering from coughs, fever, and labored breathing. Respiratory issues were not the only concern. The mental health impact of the dust storm was significant. People felt trapped and helpless as they watched their world turn black in broad daylight. Medical response efforts were strained to the limit. Hospitals in Oklahoma and Kansas saw a surge in patients suffering from both respiratory illnesses and psychological distress. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to provide care, but the sheer volume of patients often meant that only the most severe cases could be treated immediately. In the aftermath of the storm, efforts to understand and manage dust conditions became a priority. The event underscored the urgent need for environmental conservation policies. One of the first steps was forming mutual aid societies. These groups were essential in providing immediate relief and support to those affected by the storm. Local leaders played a crucial role in organizing these efforts. They coordinated volunteers, ensured the proper distribution of resources, and maintained communication channels to keep everyone informed. These government initiatives were instrumental in educating farmers about sustainable techniques that could help prevent similar crises from occurring again. One particularly effective method was the introduction of cover crops. Farmers learned how to plant these crops during fallow periods to stabilize and enrich the soil. The resilience of these communities was evident in their collective action. They worked together to rebuild fences, share food and water, and provide emotional support during this trying time. The power of mutual aid and local leadership underscored the importance of community in overcoming adversity. These actions demonstrated that even in the face of severe environmental challenges, people could come together to make a difference. Through careful stewardship and sustainable practices, farmers today are working to prevent the repetition of such environmental catastrophes, ensuring a healthier future for both people and the planet. Established in 1933 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the CCC was designed to combat soil erosion and rebuild America's natural landscape. Its role was pivotal in mitigating future dust storms through a series of targeted projects aimed at restoring the land. One of its notable projects involved planting millions of trees to create shelter belts across the Great Plains. These windbreaks served as a natural barrier against high winds, helping to stabilize the soil and prevent further erosion. Additionally, CCC workers implemented various techniques such as strip cropping and contour ploughing, which helped control soil loss. These methods ensured that agricultural lands were protected from the ravages of wind and water erosion. The CCC also focused on reseeding grasslands, a vital step in restoring the natural vegetation that once covered the Great Plains. This initiative aimed to recreate the ecosystem's resilience and prevent future dust storms from occurring. By 1942, when the CCC was disbanded, its efforts had planted over 3 billion trees and constructed more than 800 miles of shelter belts. These measures significantly reduced soil erosion rates and stabilized the land, making a lasting impact on conservation policies. Water quality in affected regions was severely compromised. The fine particles of dust that darkened the skies also contaminated local water sources. The tiny grains infiltrated rivers and lakes, clouding the water and disrupting aquatic ecosystems. Fish struggled to find their way through murky waters, making it difficult for them to feed or escape predators. Wildlife habitats that depended on clear water and healthy aquatic life were decimated. Fertile grounds that once supported lush farmlands now lay exposed to the elements, leading to further erosion and degradation. The ecological balance was thrown off kilter as once thriving wildlife lost their habitats and struggled to adapt. These consequences underscored the urgent need for conservation efforts to prevent such catastrophic events from recurring. To address this, local initiatives emerged quickly to support those affected by the storm. These initiatives focused on preserving what was left of the topsoil and reintroducing sustainable farming practices. The Soil Conservation Service, established in 1935, played a pivotal role in these efforts. They implemented programs that taught farmers about soil conservation techniques such as crop rotation and cover cropping. Community support networks were formed to share resources and knowledge among those trying to adapt to the new reality. Neighbours helped each other implement these conservation practices, creating a web of resilience that extended beyond individual farms. The resilience of rural populations was evident as they adapted to the harsh conditions. Despite the challenges, farmers found innovative ways to manage their land more sustainably and protect it from future dust storms. These efforts showed that even in the face of severe weather events, communities could come together to rebuild and adapt. The human impact and long-term resilience demonstrated during this period are a testament to the power of collective action. And as we look back at this devastating event, one thing becomes clear: the capacity for human recovery and resilience is unmatched. In the quiet after the storm, communities across Oklahoma and Kansas found a way to not just survive, but thrive, setting an example for generations to come. Businesses closed their doors, unable to withstand the economic strain. Banks teetered on the brink of collapse as loans went unpaid and deposits dwindled. The ripple effects were profound. Families struggled to put food on the table, and entire communities faced the spectre of hunger and deprivation. To mitigate the catastrophe, the government stepped in with assistance programs like the Resettlement Administration. This initiative provided aid to displaced families and supported efforts to resettle them in more viable regions. Communities learned the harsh lessons of soil mismanagement and overgrazing, prompting a shift towards sustainable farming techniques that could withstand future droughts. As the dust storm swept across the plains, it was not just the soil that suffered. The human toll was devastating. Communities found themselves in dire need of aid, with many homes left without electricity and basic supplies. It was amidst this chaos that organizations like the American Red Cross stepped in to offer relief. The Red Cross quickly established emergency shelters, providing a safe haven for those displaced by the storm. These shelters were equipped with food, water, and medical supplies, offering immediate support to families who had lost everything. Volunteers from the Red Cross worked tirelessly to distribute aid packages across affected regions. These packages included essentials like canned goods, blankets, and sanitation supplies. Coordinating with other agencies such as the National Guard and local emergency services, the Red Cross ensured that aid reached even the most remote communities. This collaboration was crucial in mitigating the impact of the storm. First-hand accounts from survivors paint a vivid picture of the relief efforts. One resident recalled how Red Cross volunteers helped evacuate elderly and vulnerable individuals, ensuring their safety during the crisis. The organized response significantly mitigated suffering, providing a lifeline for those in need. It also demonstrated the importance of preparedness and quick action in the face of natural disasters. In its wake, it left behind a landscape of devastated roads and bridges, crucial arteries of commerce and transportation now rendered impassable. Highways that once facilitated the movement of goods and people were now covered in mounds of dirt, as if a giant had taken a sieve to the landscape. Railway tracks, once the lifeline of the region, were now buried under thick layers of dust, making them unusable for trains. Bridges and overpasses, structures designed to withstand the elements, were now laden with dirt, their stability compromised. Local governments swiftly responded to this crisis, knowing that the restoration of these essential routes was paramount for the region's recovery. In the town of Stratford, Texas, a significant effort was made to clear Highway 86 and adjacent roads. The experience served as a catalyst for long-term improvements in infrastructure, with more durable materials and better maintenance practices being adopted. These upgrades underscored the importance of preparedness and adaptability in the face of extreme weather events. As roads and bridges were restored, so too was the sense of community and progress. The widespread repairs demonstrated the interdependence of human settlements and transportation networks. From the organized response to the long-term upgrades, the people of Oklahoma and Kansas showed that even in the face of nature's fury, hope and progress could prevail. The U.S. government swiftly implemented soil conservation practices, recognizing the critical importance of sustainable farming to prevent further environmental degradation. In response to the dust storms that turned day into night, communities launched tree planting campaigns to stabilize the soil and restore the landscape's natural defenses. These initiatives were not just about restoring the land, but also about safeguarding human health and welfare, which had been severely compromised by the dust storms. The impact of these efforts was profound, illustrating how proactive measures could prevent future environmental disasters and foster a more resilient ecosystem. The Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, who had long called these plains home, faced distinct challenges during and after the dust storm. Their traditional land use practices, honed over generations, were disrupted by the intense wind and dust. These tribes, skilled in living off the land, suddenly found their resources depleted and their cultural heritage threatened. Resettlement efforts, aimed at relocating affected communities to safe areas, brought further hardships. The loss of their ancestral lands and the disruption of their way of life took a deep toll on these Native American communities. While the larger efforts focused on agricultural recovery, the plight of indigenous people highlighted the comprehensive impact of the dust storm. Scientists at these stations began studying the impact of traditional farming practices on soil erosion and the environment. They discovered that deep ploughing and monoculture farming, growing a single crop year after year, had left the land vulnerable to wind and drought. They found that these methods stripped the soil of its protective layer of grasses, leaving it bare and susceptible to erosion. Cover crops, such as legumes or grasses, were planted to protect and enrich the soil during fallow periods, creating a protective barrier against wind erosion. These practices not only helped restore soil health, but also improved crop yields and reduced the risk of another Dust Bowl-like disaster. By demonstrating the power of science and innovation in addressing environmental crises, these stations played a pivotal role in mitigating future dust storms and preserving the agricultural heritage of Oklahoma and Kansas. Among those who bore the brunt of this crisis were the Dust Bowl refugees, individuals and families forced to abandon their homes, leaving behind everything they knew in search of a better life. Jose and Maria Garcia were one such family. On that fateful day, the dust storm descended upon their small farm near Guiman, Oklahoma, turning day into night. Their once fertile land was now a barren wasteland, choked with dust that made it impossible to grow crops or even sustain their livestock. With no choice left, they packed what little belongings they could carry and set out towards refugee camps, hoping for a better future. Life in these refugee camps was harsh. Overcrowded tents provided little protection against the elements, and food supplies were scarce. But amidst this hardship, a sense of community emerged. Neighbours helped each other out, sharing what little they had to make ends meet. Government aid programs finally reached these camps, providing much-needed assistance in the form of food, shelter, and medical care. The Garcias, like many others, found a glimmer of hope in these initiatives. With time, they managed to rebuild their lives, albeit under new and unfamiliar circumstances. Their story is emblematic of the resilience shown by so many Dust Bowl refugees who, against all odds, managed to start anew. As farmers stare at their barren fields, a question looms: how can we prevent this from happening again? The answer would come not just from farmers, but from scientists and conservationists who saw the land differently. One key initiative is the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, launched in 1985 by the US Department of Agriculture. The CRP aims to reintroduce native grasses and plants, the original guardians of the Great Plains of soil. These plants, unlike crops, have deep roots that stabilize the soil, preventing erosion even in high winds. The program provides financial incentives to farmers who convert their cropland into grasslands. They help with seeding and maintenance, ensuring that the new grasslands thrive. But challenges persist. Droughts still threaten, and it takes time for the native plants to establish fully. Nonetheless, these initiatives mark a significant step towards ecological restoration. They are a testament to the resilience of both the land and its people, showing that even from the darkest days, there is hope for renewal. In Oklahoma and Kansas, children were particularly vulnerable to the dust's effects. The fine particles suspended in the air posed a significant threat. Studies conducted after the storm revealed alarming rates of respiratory illnesses among children exposed to the dust. Inhaling the fine particles irritated their delicate airways, leading to persistent coughs, bronchitis, and even pneumonia. Pediatricians reported an increase in the number of young patients with severe respiratory symptoms during and after the storm. But the dust's impact went beyond physical health. It also took a heavy psychological toll on children. The constant fear of another storm, the eerie darkness during the day, and the relentless dust created a climate of anxiety that permeated daily life. Public health officials documented cases of post-traumatic stress disorder among children who lived through the storm. Long-term exposure to dust also stunted growth in many children, as their bodies directed vital resources toward coping with the constant assault. Studies showed that children living in areas heavily impacted by the Dust Bowl grew at slower rates compared to those in less affected regions. These tragedies underscored the urgent need for conservation efforts to protect future generations from similar disasters. Livestock management practices played a significant role in both contributing to and being affected by this catastrophic event. Overgrazing, a common practice at the time, left millions of acres of Great Plains farmland barren and vulnerable. Cattle health was severely compromised by the dust storms. The fine particles clogged their respiratory systems and contaminated their pastures, leading to reduced milk production and poor overall health. These changes underscored the interconnectedness of environmental factors and how they influenced conservation strategies that continue to protect our lands today. Understanding these lessons from history is crucial for safeguarding future generations from similar disasters, demonstrating the profound impact of livestock management on our environment. It's April 14th, 1935. The skies over Oklahoma and Kansas darken as if night is falling midday. Winds pick up, whipping dust into a frenzy. Residents in towns like Stratford, Texas, watch in horror as a wall of dirt descends. Diaries from the time capture the terror. One entry reads, "The world has turned black at 4 p.m. Can't see my hand in front of me." Letters mailed that day reveal a sense of doom. "We thought the end was near," writes one survivor. Interviews recall people huddling indoors, gasping for air through makeshift masks, barely able to breathe. The psychological toll is immense. Children scream in fear, adults struggle with panic attacks long after the storm passes. Yet amidst the chaos, resilience emerges. "We'll get through this," one neighbour reassures another during a candle-lit vigil. The urgency of early warnings becomes clear. Scientists begin tinkering with rudimentary systems, trying to predict the next storm. These early attempts are crude weather vanes, and barometers give little notice for a fast-moving dust storm. Undeterred, meteorologists start gathering data from telegraph offices, railroad depots, and remote weather stations. By 1936, the Weather Bureau establishes a specialized Dust Bowl forecasting division, the first of its kind. Equipped with new data and advanced models, they begin to issue early warnings. A simple flag system alerts communities, red for severe storms, yellow for moderate. The systems evolve rapidly. Radios broadcast updates, and dust detectors provide real-time data. Yet amidst this progress, a quiet determination persists, a constant reminder to always be ready for what the skies may bring next. By the end of April 14, 1935, a thick layer of dust had settled across the once fertile lands of Oklahoma and Kansas. Farmers watched in horror as their livelihoods vanished beneath the relentless onslaught. Livestock choked on the dust, and those that survived faced dire conditions as their grazing lands disappeared. Barns and outbuildings were covered in layers of dirt, making it difficult to find or access essential tools and supplies. The financial hardship faced by farmers was immense. Losses from the storm were compounded by the ongoing drought and economic struggles of the Great Depression. Government relief efforts were crucial in helping farmers stay afloat amidst the crisis. Despite these measures, many farmers were forced to abandon their land and seek other means of support. In response to this catastrophe, the US government implemented several initiatives aimed at rehabilitating the environment and preventing future dust storms. One of these programs was the Soil Conservation Service, which worked diligently to control soil erosion and promote land restoration techniques. These efforts included planting windbreaks, rows of trees and shrubs designed to slow down the wind and reduce its erosive power. Community involvement was also crucial. Local farmers were encouraged to adopt sustainable farming practices that would help preserve the soil and prevent further erosion. The Civilian Conservation Corps played a significant role in these restoration efforts. This program employed thousands of young men to work on conservation projects across the country. By understanding the causes of soil erosion and taking proactive measures to prevent it, communities could ensure that their land remained productive for generations to come. These environmental restoration efforts highlighted the commitment of both the government and local communities in addressing the challenges posed by the Dust Bowl and ensuring a healthier future for the affected regions. In the face of this catastrophe, women stepped forward to play a critical role in relief efforts and conservation. Organizations such as the Red Cross mobilized volunteers to provide immediate aid and support to affected communities. Women, in particular, were at the forefront of these volunteer efforts, offering comfort and assistance where it was needed most. The National Youth Administration also played a significant role by enlisting young women to help with land restoration projects. These young volunteers worked tirelessly, planting trees and restoring topsoil that had been stripped away by the storms. Women's advocacy for soil conservation practices gained momentum as they witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of drought and erosion. They championed new farming techniques that focused on sustainability and long-term land health. Their efforts not only aided in the immediate recovery, but also laid the groundwork for future conservation efforts. Through their dedication and hard work, these women demonstrated the crucial role that inclusive efforts play in building community resilience. Their story serves as a powerful reminder of how women's leadership and advocacy can shape a more sustainable and equitable future for all. These efforts highlighted the importance of inclusive conservation practices that recognize and value the contributions of everyone in the community. The Amarillo Daily News described the scene as an apocalyptic vision of swirling dust and darkness. These vivid accounts helped paint a clear picture of the devastation for those who didn't experience it firsthand. As the dust settled, residents emerged to find their homes and farms blanketed in a thick layer of dirt. The once vibrant fields were now desolate wastelands, choking under the weight of displaced topsoil. These harrowing images and descriptions underscored the urgent need for better conservation practices. Farmers began to realize that traditional methods were no longer sustainable in the face of such extreme conditions. As we look back on this infamous environmental disaster, it's clear that the detailed accounts from local newspapers played a crucial role in shaping public perception and driving the need for change. Their impact on immediate actions and long-term changes in conservation efforts cannot be overstated. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, federal and state governments swiftly implemented new agricultural policies aimed at mitigating future disasters. These initiatives were not merely reactionary measures, but represented a fundamental shift in agricultural policy. By enforcing stricter regulations on land use and encouraging more sustainable methods, these policies aimed to ensure the long-term viability of farming in the region. Communities that once resisted change now actively participated in soil and water conservation programs, recognizing the critical role these initiatives played in safeguarding their livelihoods and homes. Families were forced to leave their homes, often with nothing more than the clothes on their backs and a few personal belongings. The sheer force of the wind lifted topsoil and crops into the air, creating a choking cloud that reduced visibility to near zero. Livestock, particularly sheep and cattle, were especially vulnerable. The dust storms disoriented them, causing many animals to wander aimlessly until they collapsed from exhaustion or became trapped in drifts. Local businesses that depended on farming communities for their customer base also struggled. With families displaced and income severely reduced, spending power in the region plummeted. The impact on small towns was palpable. Businesses closed their doors, unable to maintain operations with the reduced customer base and increased financial strain. Many families who managed to stay in their homes found themselves with no way to pay for essentials. Food, water, and other necessities became luxury items as farmers and town residents struggled to make ends meet. The economic hardship created a vicious cycle, with farmers taking on more debt to try to keep their farms operational and support their families. This desperation underscored the need for better soil and water conservation practices, as the Dust Bowl had exposed the vulnerabilities in traditional farming techniques. With no end to the drought in sight, farmers and town residents looked for ways to adapt and survive. Recognizing the dire financial consequences of unchecked environmental degradation, communities began to actively participate in soil and water conservation programs, paving the way for a more resilient future. Amidst the storm's fury, wildlife found itself in peril. The thick blanket of dust choked out sunlight, making it impossible for photosynthesizing organisms to thrive. Birds that once relied on the prairie for sustenance faced starvation, their nesting grounds covered in a suffocating layer of dust. Small mammals and reptiles that burrowed beneath the surface for refuge found themselves trapped, their tunnels collapsed under the weight of falling dirt. Larger animals like bison and deer struggled to navigate through the dense cloud, often becoming disoriented and separated from their herds. The environmental impact extended beyond the immediate area of the storms. Ecological networks were disrupted, leading to a cascade of effects. Plants that depended on pollinating insects found their flowering cycles interrupted, reducing chances for reproduction. Soil erosion caused by the storms stripped away fertile topsoil, leaving behind barren landscapes where once thriving ecosystems had flourished. Water resources became scarce as the dust clogged aquifers and water bodies, leaving many species without their vital lifeline. The harsh reality of these storms underscored the fragility of ecosystems and highlighted the urgent need for sustainable practices to protect our environment. As we witness the aftermath of these devastating events, it becomes clear that every effort to conserve and restore our natural world is crucial. The environmental impact on wildlife and ecosystems serves as a stark reminder that our actions today shape the future of our planet. Understanding these consequences emphasizes the importance of implementing sustainable farming practices and conservation efforts to mitigate such devastating effects. During this period, resources for mental health were scarce, making it challenging for individuals to cope. The stress of displacement and uncertainty compounded the psychological burden. Many survivors experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with symptoms such as flashbacks, anxiety, and insomnia becoming commonplace. The constant fear of another storm exacerbated these issues. The combination of economic hardship and psychological trauma created a vicious cycle that was difficult to break. The lack of mental health resources during this time made the situation even more dire. Increased stress levels among survivors contributed to a rise in depression rates, as people struggled to adapt to their new reality. The sense of helplessness and despair was palpable. The dust storm's unpredictability also took a toll on mental health, as communities lived in constant fear of the next devastating event. This uncertainty added to the psychological distress already felt by many. The mental health crisis underscored the need for more than just physical recovery efforts. Holistic support systems, including counseling and community support, were desperately needed but largely absent. Newspapers like the Oklahoma City Times and the Wichita Eagle scrambled to print breaking news amidst power outages and communication disruptions. Despite these challenges, real-time reporting kept the public informed and heightened awareness of the impending danger. Photographs from the field captured eerie images of entire towns blanketed in darkness, driving home the severity of the storm. Media outlets played a crucial role in disseminating vital information, allowing people to take shelter and minimize casualties. Yet, the sheer scale of the storm often overwhelmed even the most seasoned journalists. The combination of darkness and dust reduced visibility to near zero, creating an unprecedented challenge for reporters on the ground. This real-time communication struggle highlighted the importance of preparedness and robust emergency systems in disaster management. In the aftermath, media coverage shifted to documenting the storm's catastrophic effects and the community's resilience. In Washington, D.C., lawmakers watched the unfolding disaster and recognized that existing agricultural policies were inadequate for preventing such catastrophes. This landmark legislation established a national program for soil conservation, providing financial assistance to farmers who agreed to reduce crop production. The Act also created regional planning committees, which were instrumental in implementing these policies on a local level. These committees played a crucial role in educating farmers about sustainable practices and ensuring the new regulations were adhered to. The dark clouds that once blotted out the sky now gave way to a new dawn of environmental stewardship and policy innovation. The April 14, 1935 dust storm, now known as Black Sunday, was one of the worst in American history. Its intensity was not just a product of strong winds and drought, it also stemmed from a more insidious cause, topsoil depletion. Before the storms, farmers in Oklahoma and Kansas introduced deep plowing techniques from their traditional regions. These methods laid bare millions of acres of land, leaving the topsoil vulnerable to erosion. Studies have shown that the wind patterns during Black Sunday were particularly unforgiving. Gusts reaching speeds of 40 mph or more swept across the plains, picking up loose soil and forming thick walls of dust. The absence of grass cover and the loss of topsoil meant there was nothing to anchor the land. This depleted topsoil contributed significantly to the intensity of the storms, turning day into night across affected areas. Residents had no choice but to take shelter as these black blizzards swept through their communities, causing widespread panic and reducing visibility to near zero. Photographs from the time show the devastating effects of wind erosion on farmland. highlighting how poor agricultural practices exacerbated the storm's impact. In response to these catastrophic events, modern soil and water conservation systems were developed, emphasizing the critical role of topsoil in sustaining ecosystems. Understanding the direct impact of topsoil loss on severe weather events like Black Sunday underscores the need for continued conservation and sustainable farming practices. Before 1935, forecasters relied on simple observation and basic equipment to track storms. The introduction of weather radar after World War II transformed this landscape. By 1947, the first operational weather radars began scanning the skies, detecting precipitation patterns that signaled severe weather events like dust storms. Satellite imagery, launched into orbit in the late 1960s and early 1970s, provided another powerful tool. These satellites captured broad views of atmospheric conditions, enabling meteorologists to track large-scale systems that could lead to dust storms. They offered a bird's-eye view of weather patterns that ground-based radar couldn't match. Today, these three technologies, weather radar, satellite imagery, and computer modeling, work in tandem to provide the most accurate weather forecasts possible. They combine real-time data with sophisticated simulations to offer early warnings that save lives and property. Understanding how these advancements work gives us a new appreciation for the ingenuity that goes into keeping our skies safe and predictable. They are a testament to human resilience in the face of natural adversities. But the story doesn't end there. Native American agricultural practices, rooted in deep knowledge of their lands, offered a unique resilience to the devastating effects of the Dust Bowl. Long before European settlers arrived, Native American tribes had developed sustainable farming methods tailored to the specific landscapes and climates of their regions. These practices included crop rotation, intercropping, and the use of cover crops to maintain soil health and prevent erosion. While the Dust Bowl brought severe challenges, some native communities were better prepared due to their agricultural heritage. For instance, in areas where drought was a recurring issue, tribes had developed methods to conserve water and protect their crops from extreme weather conditions. These traditional practices provided a lifeline during the harsh years of the Dust Bowl, helping to mitigate some of the worst effects of the severe weather events. The lessons learned from these resilient agricultural traditions are invaluable for modern conservation efforts. By understanding and incorporating indigenous knowledge into contemporary farming practices, we can build a more sustainable future for our lands